Let's take a look at Night Prowler. So this one is tuned down a half a step. So the intro chords, we're going to play A and D. And when we hit this D, we want to make sure we include that open A string. And then we're going to play this C chord here. So we already have from our D shape that 3rd fret fretted on the B string. I'm just moving my middle finger now up to that 3rd fret on the A. So we just have those 2 notes for this chord. We want to make sure we strum through that, and we don't want to hit the big E or the little E string. So I'm palm meeting that big E with my thumb here, and then back to D again. Alright, then we're going to play this lick here before we get into some more chords. And that lick, the basic notes for that, and I've already got my D shape here, so I'm just moving my middle finger up here. But the bass notes are just going to be open E to 3rd fret on the E, to open A to 3rd fret on the A to our A chord. But we don't want to play it that cleanly. What we want to do is we want to play the E with the A and then the 3rd fret on the E, and then the A and the D together, and then the 3rd fret on the A to the A chord, so we get this sound. And then we're going to go to C. Now when we get to C, Malcolm plays, when we get to this part in any part of the song, he plays this C a couple of different ways, or at least strums it a couple of different ways. The chord's still the same, but I'm going to show you 3 different ways I think it's played. So one of the first ways is we're just going to pick that 3rd fret on the A string to that open G, back to the 3rd fret on the A with the open D that's already there, to the D chord. So it's going to sound something like this. And then we start over again. Another way is that same concept, except we're just going to strum those chords a little bit more fully and make sure we hear that 3rd fret on the B ring out in there. Alright, and then another way sounds like we're playing those 2 strings there, and then we're going to pick the G and the B and then the full C back to D. So there's a lot of different ways he's playing that, and then sometimes you just think it's, something like that. Alright, so that's pretty much the beginning of the song. Let's take a look at when the vocals start. Vocals start, we're going to play A, D, G, D, back to A again, but we're going to play them with a little bit different shapes than we normally do. So our A chord will be the same. And then we're going to come down here to the 5th fret on the E, 5th fret on the A, 4th fret on the D, so we get this sound. And then the 5th fret on the A and the D, and then back to this again, and then back to A. Alright, we're going to play that a few times, then we're going to go back to our riff again. Alright, so the only difference there is we're going to play that A twice, and in between striking those A chords there's that little pause, and then after the second A you've got to get back down here to D pretty quickly. Alright, and then we're going to finish that up and we'll go back into those same chords, our A, D, C, D again, and then we're going to hear something like this. We're going to hear those same chords played, but a little bit more percussive. All right, so when we play that, back down to here, and then we got to play the riff. All right, and then we go back into those chords again. So those are all the main parts for the song. Let's take a look at the guitar solo and how this one wraps up. As we head into the chords for the guitar solo, they're really the same. We're just going to be playing A, D, C with those different strumming patterns back to D again, except, as we wind the guitar solo down, you're just going to hear after the riff, you're just going to hear a pause. So and then we're just going to go back to C to D. And back into those chords again. So there's a little difference there right after we come out of that little pause part, is that now you're going to play A 2 times, D once, or C strumming pattern back to D, and then A 2 times, D 2 times, strumming pattern on C back to D again. So the strumming changes just a little bit there. And then as we get to the end of the song, we're just going to strum on these chords a little bit more until we wind it down. So it's going to be something like this. And don't forget to pop the A at the end. We'll see you guys next time.